Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. If it's your first time here, my name is Yosadu. I am a variety game streamer and I'm constantly looking for games to play with my community, team-based environments, competitive games, things that really allow us to grow and thrive and strategize. And we came across Wildgate recently during an open beta period. This is actually the second open beta that happened before its release in July. And many of us were just absolutely in love, enamored by the experience, so much so that when it went down, we couldn't stop thinking about it. And I said, let's do a podcast. And for the next few Wednesdays before the game releases, we will be going live at 7 p.m. on Wednesday night. That's Eastern time. And we'll be discussing further about the game, tier lists, possibly even getting devs to answer some questions. I really hope that'd be awesome. So here's the segment, about an hour of our conversation, talking about our beta impressions, alongside some gameplay from that highlight. Drop your comments, questions, interests. You know, I'd be able to address them in the next episode, and I hope to see you there. Okay, enjoy.
All right, while you're pulling up the VODs, you want me to start chatting away?
Yes, we could start with general impressions about the beta. Let's start there. That's what this episode is primarily gonna launch with.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. So for anybody that's watching, I doubt you really need an introduction to who we are, but I'm Crystallized. I'm one of the leaders here at Shiv Nation, and I'm a huge fan of Wildgate, and I love whatever is happening over at this studio and whatever sort of concoctions they are putting together in this intergalactic PvE VPV bananas bullshit that's going on in the background. It's just, not only has it just been an overall fun experience for those that like things just like simplified into one sentence, it is a fun game. It will capture your time. And yes. I think it also respects your time really well.
I agree. Yeah. I think, I definitely think that I'm not sure if there's more. Even if there wasn't, this small package was insanely filling.
Yeah, I would say the word I would describe my experience with both betas would be potent. That's like the word that comes to mind for me. Like, I think collectively, so community, I know we averaged about 30 hours per consistent crew member between the two betas. I think 30 is a very generous mark. People definitely went higher than that, myself included.
I have 52.1 hours.
Yeah, I think I had about 30 in the first beta and a little over 40 in the second one. And so that time was well spent. There was not a dull moment when it came to the seamless transition of exploration to exploitation to PvP, sub-naval / spatial combat, and just all around just unbridled amounts of fun when it came to how all the pieces came together. I really think that Wildgate takes a couple aspects of childhood games. Like when I think about like Battlefield Bad Company, for example, this is what it kind of reminded me of, like the aerial combat. How like when you're flying the like the big helicopters with the miniguns and stuff on it, and you're trying to break up the ship's like defenses, and you're also trying to break up some of the other flying personnel, trying to kill them, and also trying to take care of some of the other people that were either trying to board you or take you down at the same time.
Right.
It's like, it's also kind of like getting the AC-130 kill streak in the old Call of Duties, except it's the entire game.
Right, that's like, the whole game.
You are playing the AC-130, and no, I love just like the camaraderie that comes from those moments. Like there was so much theory crafting that went into our play style and how we approach the game. But putting all of that aside, if you're a casual gamer, And let's say you're looking at this for just purely the aspect of, oh, I like games in space. This game, I think, will cater to a large audience in that aspect because its space elements are done really, really well. The art style is inviting, it's
Hmm.
engaging, it's not hard on the eyes. Like, the amount of hours that we put into this game, no eye strain for me, no fatigue, just
True,
constantly was able
true.
to go back into that. Like, and you compare that to like the amount of time that we put into like Overwatch, how much mental fatigue goes into that, how much eye strain comes into that because of all the clutter on the screen. Not to dock against Overwatch, because I know these are former Blizzard devs, but like, this game, everything that is happening on screen, it's done in such a way that is digestible with each match.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very comfortable amount of time. You're averaging about 22 minutes to maybe 40 minutes per game. And so that's enough time for you to really sink your teeth in and to get a little bit of every single cookie that's in this proliferated jar of sweets. You know what I mean? I
I
could go on
definitely,
on it.
yeah, it's awesome, man. Like I love that. I love that it kind of incites that vibe, and I definitely agree with like there's some level of like nostalgia, kind of like in the at its core. It feels like a game. It's not trying to be hyper realistic. It's not trying to even be like graphically the most impressive thing we've ever played. You know, like it feels like just solid game development and a fun idea that developers are having an opportunity to build on. And you know, we've talked about this, you know, when we were playing, how it there's something that's just like it's it just kind of keeps kind of reeling us back in to queue up another one. It's like so intriguing, and yet it really is one of the more simpler to pick up games. Like, it really doesn't ask a lot of us.
Right.
And you know, it is, I think that really makes for a good foundation. And I like to bring up chess a lot.
Yeah, I remember you were talking about this. You guys need to listen to this because I think this is a solid point. Go ahead.
It's the concept of, it's like space chess. It's like chess by its definition. You have simple pieces. The pieces are predefined. So you have your heroes and you have your ships, you know, ultimate, and you have your chess grid, and you generally, you don't ever have to worry about the balance of a chess piece. You just put it into play and you learn how they all come together and synergize to then develop a strategy. And even after a while, you get repetitious in your opening game, in your mid game, in your late game. You develop these ongoing strategies, and even if unlike other games, the repetition here doesn't get stale. It gets refined. It gets interesting. That's what keeps me coming back. It's like, I've been playing chess my whole life. Game
Right,
hasn't
I was
changed.
gonna
They haven't,
say,
you know, like
yeah.
they haven't patched chess in a while. They might have added a couple of different versions of variations of how you can play the game, but chess is chess and it will always be chess, and you can't just change the game. If they've they've established a really good foundation, of course, I think eventually adding variation to the experience would be something that this version of chess, the space chess, would eventually require. They can make very subtle additions that won't change the game. It would only improve or create that level of more variation that would allow the game to evolve slowly and digestibly, because that's, I think, really important for game development. Multiplayer games, I think there's two things that we've seen: games updating too frequently and is impossible to kind of get a hang on, which is why the entry level of some of these games that have been around for a long time are just impossible to get into. Nobody's just playing League of Legends for the first time tomorrow, and getting people into Overwatch is really difficult and challenging. You know, and Marvel Rivals, both approachable and then like also really hard to digest because there's just so much going on.
Yeah.
Not bad games, but like hard to digest.
I want to go back on what you just said because I think that's important as well. But before I do, quick question to you as someone that has not only been a part of a lot of launch programs, but beta programs, even NDAs, and have seen sort of third-party games go, because I think you have kind of an eye for this, and I see this a lot with like Asmongold commentary, or like Astacross commentary, or even just other YouTubers where they talk about new IPs that come into play, and they talk about whether or not it is going to be effective long term. So let's say dollar per dollar, the game launches what, $40? Let's talk about like the amount of money spent on this game. Do we feel like it's worth it for the product if it has a price tag attached to it? Because I'm not entirely sure. We can look at that real quick. Do you feel like the barrier of entry is high or low for this kind of game?
I think the barrier of entry would be defined by its price point. And I do think that the sweet spot is somewhere in that $25 to $40 range. $20 to $40. I think generally $20 would probably be modest. And I think that like if this game was a $40 price point, which I will circle back around to, because I think that is the current sweet spot for multiplayer experiences that are expecting to have long-term development and live service development and possibly microtransactions or expansions or battle passes going forward, which I kind of just expect nowadays. So like, but you need it to be more than free to play to establish a quality player base. But you can't make this game an $80 game and expect it to do well either. So, yeah. But I think
it's just double check. It's got a $29.99 USD price tag, so that's good. I threw it in the chat for everybody.
Perfect. Okay, then I think what makes Wildgate special is the ability to fluently split your focus between tasks. Nothing feels out of the way or tiresome. It's all entertaining throughout all segments of the matches. Thank you for that comment, Forcing. That's awesome that you joined the chat. I can totally agree with that sentiment. I think that's a really awesome idea. Circling back around, though, Chris is saying the barrier of entry for this game at a $30 price point, I think that really is a sweet spot to be an incentive game, especially with 350k initial wishlisters, which is even a small portion of that game could really be a healthy player base. Now that people are committing to that $30 price point, the people who will be playing this game are interested in getting involved in this game. And I think that that's going to be really awesome. Now, like, if you look about this in any multiplayer game, there's about a 30-day fall-off window. After 30 days, most games will lose about 60% of their player base. But even at 10% of the consistent player base from 350k, multiplayer games can last a long time with just about 1,000 players. You know, like you're looking at some of these games now, like even Halo's only got a few thousand people playing at any given time. Tell you what, I'm sure those few thousand people are still loving the game.
Well, so let's also take into the fact that the devs did announce they've got over 300,000 wish lists on Steam alone. This game will be dropping with crossplay at launch.
Big
you'll be able
move.
to play on console. You'll be able to play with your friends on PC. There is in-game chat. There are colorblind and accessibility options.
Always important.
There is no skill-based matchmaking.
Interesting. Okay. I can that's a point. Hey, there he is, buddy.
Yes.
We
knew you were.
Aiden.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're gonna break something down real quick, and then we'll loop you in. But go ahead, Zero.
To say, I know he was finishing up his Exposition 33 playthrough, and I'm interested to hear about his reaction to that. But yeah, we were talking about the barrier of entry for the game, as well as reflecting on how there is 350,000 people who wishlist the game as soon as it became available to wishlist post-launch, and
crossplay at launch as well, and included voice chat. You can queue solo, you can queue as a squad. I almost wonder if maybe some offline play will be available. I think that would be cool as well. That might be good for some people that may not have direct internet access all the time. Now, I know A lot of these multiplayer games, they don't offer that, but they do have the AI mode. I wonder if that AI mode may be available offline. Could be fun. I think it'd be really cool if they went the Age of Empires route with this and they could choose the amount of ships that are in play and choose the AI difficulty of said play so that you could create your own lobby. Because imagine that, like with like a map size slider, maybe a loot size slider. You can choose your own squad. You can choose the aptitude of the squad, something like that. That could be really fun. I know that's a lot of dev work, but you know, something to keep in mind for those players that don't necessarily always have a squad, but still want to get the idea of play. I think that could be a cool idea to toss around. But real quick, Aiden, just to get you caught up on the conversation, Wildgate, beta's over. How was your general experience with the game? How did you feel about it? How much time did you sink into it? What were your initial thoughts and thoughts after the beta's closed?
How I felt about it is I was grateful. It definitely helped me grow as a person. That's, for me, that's a mark of a truly well-made game. Working with you all in high pressure situations when we are all team players, specifically the three of us in this room, we care very much about our performance. We've got a competitive edge, but we also care about the people around us and their experience as well. So it was just experiencing all of that helped me. It humbled me. It made me step up where I needed to. It showed me where I could handle pressure, high pressure situations. And even though it's in the video game space, I believe that the mind, to a degree, can't tell the difference. And how we act, though again is in a video game, I actually believe in these virtual spaces where there is no general sense of physical harm from anyone else. We see the real nature of people when it comes to video gaming, especially online in competitive situations. And I saw the best come out of us in the game, before the game, after the game. Myself, I strived, and I believe I've grown, and I'm grateful for the game for that. I think they put together a great show. I really don't have anything to complain about the game other than that it's not out now. I want it to be out.
Huge complaint for me.
Huge
Go ahead and
complaint.
send that up the line, boys. Yeah.
Like,
Let's get the game out now. I'm sure a lot of people in chat feel the same way.
to your point, though, actually just going a little back to the idea of an AI room setting up, that to me, if they allowed for 4 friends to go in said Forge-like situation, that would actually satiate my need for the PvE boundless No Man's Sky-esque that I wanted from it. If they could make a mode like that where the 4 of us could just put all the ships against us, put them on hardest, and just, that would be friggin' great.
And again, I know there's not a lot of support for games that do that. Now, Age of Empires and other, you know, what is it? Real-time strategy, RTS games, they do that a lot. And I know like in Halo, used to be able to do that, right? You could set the difficulty, or you could at least set the parameters for the map and the match, stuff like that. I think having some sort of custom games, and Zero and I talked about this at the end of the first beta, having some sort of custom games available for your friends to just kick back and open up a lobby, how sick would that be to be able to bring your friends, just like Aiden was saying, have some sort of parameters for those AI, make them as hard as you freaking can, and just have an all-out brawl. Like that, you could set the AI like to choose whether or not they go for the artifact or not, and just make it straight PvP. Can you imagine? That would be crazy.
So good.
It is, you know, I do, my only change for the game would like to see is just more information about ships, guns, etc., stat-wise, precise numbers. I think some sort of info list of something could be very easily patched in, although you can go to the firing range and like really kind of try it out yourself and really get a good idea, which is what we wound up doing kind of late in the beta. We were like, oh crap, we didn't know this gun did this or this gun did that, and we just like looked at the numbers ourselves. I even think that I saw somewhere the devs mentioned some stat numbers, but I don't think it was like a really strong infographic that gave us all the information we were looking for. And we did see some discrepancies in the beta with like information not being said about everything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of an example of that. For instance, the item that allowed you to teleport and refresh your equipment. except it didn't say that. It said refresher ammo, or I think, right? Like it was just the ammo and not the equipment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there were some discrepancies, and I think that's just something that's going to get buffed out as the game gets more patches. Honestly, we're not looking at a completely polished product, but I do like what I see. I think a couple of grammatical errors in there, a couple of just phrasing and stuff to make it more cohesive and understandable, to forcing its point. The devs have already come out and said that there are plans to do that. There's also going to be patches, like with each patch, there's going to be notes that's going to show the more in-depth stuff. That'll be available inside the game. They're trying to update the game UI, because apparently a lot of people didn't know that you could adjust your loadout in the first 15 seconds of being in the first lobby before the game actually launches. There's apparently a button that you could press to change your loadout. So, and also...
There was?
Yeah.
No
I
shit.
could not find it ever since I started.
For real? There was a hot swap?
15 seconds.
Yeah.
I think 15 seconds is too short of a window where, at least as far as I could see, once that dev meeting came out, I looked ever since for like 3 days after that. I could not find it. And they need to make that more obvious.
It's missing UI. They said that it's programmed in the game to allow that to happen, but there was no UI available for it.
Right.
So, but you can see when you press escape at the beginning, because I checked it after that patch notes. You press escape at the beginning where everybody's in the hangar. You can see view loadout, and you can see that the items are highlighted a certain color, and you can click over them, but you can't change anything.
Interesting. So you mentioned earlier when you were saying all of the list of attributes that the game had, that is crossplay. And I just wanted to say, as someone who spent this last early access or beta on PS5, it was smooth. I enjoyed it very much on a controller.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have any connectivity issues, if I remember correctly.
No, as far as just generally connect, we had a couple of queue up issues.
Couple of desync issues, but that kind of stuff happens, you know. I mean, that happens even with like Overwatch sometimes. Like that happens with games that have existing servers. And I mean, that's just going to happen. The game itself, I don't think, is dedicated servers. I think it is peer-to-peer, if I'm not mistaken. And so you're going to have some desync that happens with that. But real quick, I want to touch on this before we get back into the general performance of the game. Forcing It said something really cool, and I want to read this to you, Aiden, so you can hear it. So he said, I think what makes Wildgate special is its ability to fluently split your focus between tasks. Nothing feels out of the way or tiresome. It's all entertaining during all segments of the matches. I really like how he worded this, because when Zero and I were kind of talking about like the chess aspect of this game, I was going to bring up RuneScape, and I know every conversation about gaming, I'm going to bring up RuneScape.
That's fair. That's
but
good.
One of the most beautiful and consistent things about old school RuneScape is its combat and its ability to stick to the combat triangle. I think Wildgate has, in its own sense, a combat triangle. You have ship combat, you have player-to-player combat, and you have PvE combat. And I think the way that it synergizes so well between the three, I think it's beautiful. I think it's almost seamless. The fact that you can go from a POI to loot and grab a gun, put it on that gun, and immediately start shooting at another team, and then have someone raid you and turn around and bam, 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 shoot him with your freaking, your shotgun that Zero just unlocked, or the new pistol, or that aim easy gun that everybody was going crazy about. That in and of itself, it does feel seamless, does it not? Like, there wasn't really a moment where I was like, man, I don't feel like these mesh well together, because all the different forms of combat just felt like one, and it all synergized well. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
I believe that you're right. You definitely hit the nail on the head. Whatever aspects of the game, either resource gathering or POI or steering the ship, etc., wherever there were shortcomings, it was on, I think it was user error. I put it on myself. It was either the build I came in with,
or just a lack of experience, like learning about new things.
And definitely it came to a point where, and which got me excited, where it was like I would see the different combinations that you could, if I had this kind of character with this on, or just could sacrifice one space in my item for this, I could broaden my range. I like to be as well-rounded as possible when I'm building eclectic characters or theory crafting, and that game gave me all the space to do it. I like to take notes when I make music, and that game made me take notes. I was just like, okay, yeah, okay, this, that.
This man had a pen pad out while he was
Every
in
time.
space.
So good. It was so good. It was floating around and everything. But and it was it also helps the crew, I think, when it comes to that, to appreciate the different areas, because we can respect each other's desired areas, and then we even had the opportunity, thankfully, to this community, to challenge preconceived notions that we may have had. Everyone, as far as I can remember, when we said, hey, drive, no one, even they would say I don't want to, and then would do it anyway. And then they ended up being better for it, more competent when the next rounds came across.
Yeah.
Everyone. I was very proud of all of us.
I definitely think that from what I experienced, there was some players that had like that. They either the absolute desire to take the helm or the absolute like just rejection. Like, I'm not touching this thing. You know, like there was the middle ground was interesting because like I found that the middle ground still leaned more towards the former. Like if you were like, hey, I'll drive, you would probably be okay to drive, period, like completely. But there was a few people who was like, I'm not touching these controls. When ship's going down, I'm not touching them. You know, like there was a couple of players like that. Or I'm not letting these up. I was definitely one of these players that like, I loved steering that ship. That was one of the biggest pulls to that game because it's an experience that I haven't found anywhere else. And the closest thing to that, and I know some people may disagree, but the relationship to Sea of Thieves is a very particular thing. That ship feel, the idea of steering a vessel that has weight is such a unique experience in gaming that was only given in Sea of Thieves for a while that I've experienced.
I gotta play that game.
I'm telling you, bro, if we got on Sea of Thieves, you just gotta put on the pirate hat. Like we're getting out of space, we're going into sea. You know, like you gotta put on the pirate hat. And if you get behind that ship, you're going to be like, okay, this is kind of crazy. Like you feel it. You feel immersed into that space. Wildgate really does bring you in. I feel like, yeah, oh yeah. It's a great experience. It's also on PlayStation and it's crossplay enabled on Sea of Thieves these days.
Oh boy, that's all I needed to hear.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm pretty sure it's crossplay enabled. Just double check that, but I'm pretty sure crossplay enabled. Which again, going back to that point. A game like this that has the primary component of multiplayer engagement needs to be cross-compatible for it to succeed in 2025 and beyond.
Yeah,
Hard agree. There's not a lot of games that survive with a single pool of players. I mean, just look at like the difference of players versus like Overwatch on Battle.net versus Overwatch on Steam. Imagine there wasn't cross compatibility there, or there wasn't cross compatibility between consoles and all the different launchers for PC. They'd be dead in the water.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm happy to see it. I think maybe 3 times last year, even though the last 3 to 4 years have been phenomenal in the range of games that have come out and absolutely changed the landscape. I remember asking repeatedly, probably one of the first 3 questions, and Zero, maybe you can attest to it. I'd say, is it crossplay? And then we no. Every time.
It hurts when it's not.
They're going to do it. It's going to come out. It's like, yeah, it's going to come out. I want it now. I don't even, like, to your point, Chris, it's like, I want it now. It's not here now. And I had to watch you guys play, what was it? Baldur's Gate 3 for like 3-4 months, and they didn't have the crossplay enabled. Now they do. Actually, is it crossplay? I don't even think they have that yet.
And cross progress. That was patched in later, but you can. It's cross progress, crossplay now.
Too late.
It is too late, though. It is too late.
That's the thing, Chris. Like, you're not. It is huge, and it would have been even better. Unfortunately, they couldn't. Oblige.
The thing about Baldur's Gate is that it feels a niche that not a lot of other games can do. In which case, you've got a lot of D&D players that come to that to mod the shit out of that game, and also just like the character customization of it, the many different routes of it, the so many different ways that you can play it. I think that's got a way lower barrier of entry than, say, a game like Wildgate, regardless of the fact that these patches came in late. And the reason why I say that is, again, the fact that it fills a niche. I mean, look at RuneScape. In a environment full of MMOs where there's constant releases of new MMOs, this game has constantly improved. Over 130,000 concurrent players this year alone, the highest that it's been since 2007. And it is the oldest graphically. Mechanically, it's the one that makes the least amount of sense, but it fills a niche. It stays and it sticks and it solidifies. So Baldur's Gate 3, I think, fills that niche as well for it in its own right. Will Wildgate fill its own niche? I think that remains to be seen, but I think it definitely has potential. I think it's, in terms of a product, I think it's well worth the $30 price point. I think it is a shit ton of fun. And if you're looking at it hour per dollar, you're going to double that. I would pay 60 for this, but that's just me, you know, because I put in 70 hours between the betas, and I feel like I owe the game some money now because it definitely took some time from me. And, you know, I'm missing it. I'm missing it like an ex that got away, bro. I really need it back today.
Yeah, it's definitely a somber experience. And we talk about that. Aiden and I like to bring this up all the time. You know, like I have seen games burn out in these periods, and that's a fear. We would hate for the general hype to be only now, and then when that game releases, it not be as big as when it was only during the beta periods. But looking at the whys during these development cycles, I do think is the determining factor of long-term success and why these things are worth the extra attention versus generally why, well, you know, I had my fun. I'm not excited for when it comes out. I am, in fact, maintaining my excitement for this game when it comes out because that last beta period was twice the enjoyment of the first one.
Agreed.
And I still want more. But I do think that with only a month left of development, and I can't seem to find more. I can't seem to find evidence that the developers have things that we already want, which is a different map, I guess is referred, you know, like, or a different system that you could fly around in. Even if it was just a color palette swap, you know, like that could be a huge difference. And I really would like to see that in the near future. It doesn't have to be available on launch day. It would be nice if it was. It'd be nice if this launch was like 3 different maps. Each map produces its own variables.
Man, we talked about a bunch of fun things. What was that one that we talked about? A roaming storm? Who brought that up?
Yeah, I don't remember, but I do remember the conversation.
Yeah, the roaming storm I really like. I think having like a rogue legion of like mini ships.
That'd be cool.
Sort of patrolling the areas.
Yeah, like little patrol ships from the aliens.
What's funny, well, I guess interesting, is that they're showing different aspects of what you both just said, right? Mm-hmm. If you notice, when we're in the hangar, they'll say the name of the sector, and then if I never really wrote it down, but there would have different modifications on the level based on the sector that we were going in, giving that illusion that we're not necessarily fighting on the same place. And if we are in a galaxy, it's going to be aesthetically repetitive. So what we can expect to change would be the POIs, which I think they really did try to make a nice diverse pool, especially for where they are.
Yeah.
Where different POIs, different challenges, like
the POIs felt way better this beta, right? Didn't it, Zero? Like I have to say, like, because that was one of my big complaints was from the first beta, was that it was too easy, and I think Aiden even said that as well.
And it ended up being just a very diverse palette, at least 4 or 5 different things. And then as far as roaming ships, the turrets. We had the turrets and the leeches. They did make sure that there was life in these places, as it were, in a sandbox. I think the sky's the limit, but I think I'm only mentioning it to say it's not far-fetched. I wouldn't be surprised if you both get what you're asking for to a very strong degree. They seem to have the imagination for it. These are the minds of who used to work at Blizzard, and they have showed it to be true.
I do see, there are some commentaries going around in their Discord, that Discord, just like any other community Discord, there's strong opinions and then like also nonsense. But I remember us talking about, so one, it was Mob who was actually listening in on that last devcast, and they spoke about things like variations of storms and finding other ways to keep the POIs feeling fresh and more challenging. And we saw something like that in the a second playtest, which was, I don't know how of you, but there, I don't know who was in that lobby, but Mob and I found a space station, and the space station said, "Loot here, I swear." Mm-hmm. One, we also couldn't find a way to get in, so the access to the that POI required us to actually feed it a resource on hand. So we had to actually go farm either an ice or a fuel and feed its own generator to open the doors.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that. Right?
And it just so happened that we were near resources at that time. But I think there was like only one or two. Like it was very easily, it could have very easily have gone into our ship and we wouldn't have been able to get into that POI. But we got in there, and then when we went in there, it really only had like that arrow pointing to like this one item, and we're just like, this seems weird and wrong. So we had to kind of like feel around into the POI in a way, like to find this like one available door, and it led us through the POI till eventually and the thing kept updating saying keep looking until boom, the loot room opened again. So like that definitely felt different, and that was very fun, and it was like already the situation was feeling already pressured. I think there were ships nearby, like we didn't need this wild goose hunt in the middle of this high pressured situation.
Right.
And I think that it's to their credit. Real quick, I'm seeing Chloe over here on the side. She's making some suggestions. Let's see. What did she say? Maybe a shrinking storm could be fun.
Yeah.
Force more ship fights. Yeah. And then what if they had different maps for different journey you're on? Yeah, because you can get different equipment for each journey. I mean, I like the idea of coming in with a customizable ship. I didn't say it earlier. I just remembered it. I think it might be a little bit too much to ask because it's supposed to be you drop in, you find the loot, and feeling that RNG thrill to get something crazy, and I understand that completely, but I wish we could just bring in certain aspects of our ship already made once we come into the game, like a loadout.
I think that like loadout mode, like I think there's a potential for them, like I want to see them use the tools that they already have to make different variations of a game mode. Going back to the conversation of chess, if you have good pieces in play and you have good boards and a good initial board, you can use those good pieces in different variations. Chess has had different game modes. There's Fisher chess, you just reduce the clock. There's another one where the chess pieces get fused together and they can move in different ways. So like, okay, why can't you take a mode that has maybe a 4 quadrants mode, or everybody get like quad cannons only, and everybody just is equipped with quad cannons off the rip, and last man standing. Like you don't have to, you can very easily implement a last man standing mode, and without needing to have insane development time, right? Like we don't want to do that either and expect that they're going to have to commit the next 6 months to some crazy game mode that might have not even been in their desired development wheelhouse,
I think that brings up a really good point, Zero. And talking along that same line, let's talk as devs, as hypothetical devs for just a second. And let's look at this from the perspective of already enlisted assets in the game. So we've got the board at the beginning of each round that tells us what modifiers are on there. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of tweaks that you could make within the realm of possibility. You have your types of encounters in the game. There is your typical PvP encounter, which has a one-on-one, one-on-two, one-on-three, or one-on-four, third party, fourth party, whatever the case may be. And then the way I see it, you have two different types of encounters in the game. You have a static encounter, which is a POI interest, or you have a dynamic encounter, which is a storm or the turrets or fires or mines, stuff like that, that require you to move within a certain parameter. So taking those into consideration, what sort of tweaks do you think they can make within those parameters? And I'll jump in first because I have a few ideas. I like what you were saying, Zero, about the quad guns, right? I think that would be easily implemented in the same sense that they've programmed the ships to just have the base guns. They could just scrap gun loot from the loot table and then just give everybody quad guns. And then it becomes a gadget game, right? Then it also becomes a weapon game. So who's got the best loadout? Who's got the best boarding? Because no one's going for steals now on guns.
True.
Let's say you take steals out entirely. You know what I mean? And then you could also randomize gadgets. That could be fun. So like they have like all gadgets look the same when you loot them, but you don't know what they are until you implement them onto the ship. That could be something. I really liked the idea that Aiden was talking about. This was probably second or third day before the beta was empty, where pilots, you know how you have a loadout, right? You can, that certain hero that you're playing as, the party leader determines an attribute for the ship.
Right, a perk, right.
Yeah, yeah, and having it just as a static perk would be a great idea. That adds a little bit more variation to the game. Doesn't have to be game breaking. Think of it kind of like the first perk you get in the Overwatch match now that they have perks.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just a little step up. And they already have loadouts, so that just changes seamlessly with each character that you choose and each ship that you choose, respectively. Static encounters, I think that they could make POIs until their eyes bleed. You know, there's so many different ways they could keep adding a bunch of different enemies to the game. They can make the combat even harder. They can make it easy. We've seen easy loot. Imagine extra hard loot, right? Something like that. Dynamic encounters, I think, is going to make the game be a way better version in and of itself. If they can find a way to make better, more intriguing dynamic encounters, kind of like some of the ideas that we've tossed around with, like, you know, like a roaming battalion of, you know, baby ships or baby turrets, or some of the alien maybe the aliens have scout ships and maybe they alert other aliens in the sector and they come and attack you or something like that.
Right.
Or something that could be cool as well is, like, let's say they allow you to, and this is kind of going outside of the triangle that we talked about, but what if they had an ability where you could align with one of the aliens, and anytime that that alien is attacked on the map, they send you a notification to your ship, like, oh,
That could be interesting.
like C3 has a has like a booger swarm there. You're aligned with the boogers. They're letting you know that they're being attacked in C3. Just a additional scouting method, something like that. But I want to hear y'all's thoughts. Go ahead.
What I like about this is, in this perspective that we're striving to take on, is the sky is the limit again, or the space, you know, the vastness of space is the limit. One thing that I don't necessarily like what they've done to themselves here is they made it something that has to be continually monitored. I don't like that for them. As a small studio coming out and making a great gesture and move with this game, I don't want them to have to be stuck keeping this thing alive. If they were to do even half the stuff that you're saying, Chris, which I think is very possible, I would love for them to do that and be able to let it exist on its own and just in the vastness of their creative space. If it wasn't, unfortunately, PvP games can't exist without them keeping servers up, paying for those servers, and doing maintenance. I wish there was a way that they could have this game be what it is and then just go on to their next project, because they have so much potential and they will eventually, hopefully they won't, but that's just the way numbers work, will eventually be stretching themselves thin. They're going to have to be putting everything into this, and I don't know. That's the one problem that I see with this game from a dev's perspective.
I think a dev would try to strive for creating a good base product and letting the community keep it up. I mean, there have been plenty of successful games that have been multiplayer that used to be live servants that eventually the service stops, but are still online. Team Fortress 2, Team Fortress 2.
Without any in-game purchases? Because I don't think this
Absolutely
game has that. Really?
Team Fortress 2 can still be played today. It's mostly held up by the community that still plays it. It's a very small and niche community, but you can still play.
Is it something like where they gave them access to some type of code or whatever so they can have their own personal servers?
I do think if it is peer-to-peer, that means usually we access the game, one of us starts a lobby, and then people can join that lobby, which I think is minimal need for developer intervention, like that, where it costs them nothing.
Is that game crossplay?
No.
I think that might be one of the challenges to that ideal outcome, because that would be great. I want that for Wildgate.
But that's even if they have to maintain or eventually end service, having a lifespan again, having a reasonable price tag versus a double that price tag, and transparency. That's it. It's just about transparency. And if they're not trying to extort their player base by trying to make every little dime possible on, that's a huge thing too. Because that's usually when it hurts the most, when the developers become extortionists and try to nickel and dime you and then eventually take away your access anyway.
Right.
I'd rather them go the route of releasing expansions. Like, let's say they want to develop this game further. Let's say they want to add a new ship. Let's say they want to add a new map. Let's say they want to add a new game mode. I'd rather you sell me an expansion for another $30 that fundamentally stacks on this game. I'd rather, just do it that way. I'd rather you not trickle me down. I'd rather you tell me I need to pay a service fee. I'd rather that. I'd rather it move over to PlayStation Plus service fees or Game Pass service fees and say, in order for this to maintain, we've partnered with Microsoft to make this a Game Pass specific experience. I'd rather something like that, because, okay, that means you're keeping it up. Cool. That's what that is. There's a reason why even some of these oldest games, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, RuneScape has you pay a subscription fee, right?
Correct. $14.99 a month for membership.
What is that, 20 years old? How old is that game?
Yes.
20 years? Give or take?
5-ish.
20, okay, almost 30 years. That's why a game like that can be constantly kept up and still developed into today's day and age. And I'm sure that development team has evolved, changed, and people have revolving door style of development, which can lead to slower or more rapid changes in the game, which is part of just how these games evolve and grow. If, to say that we want a player versus environment experience, might require a very different leg of development that may not be obtainable in this current release window. Might not have been obtainable, period. But if they ever wanted to see that future, that might, from here on, they may have to reestablish their development. Maybe now that they get that initial release, they can go, okay, the next year and a half, they're going to develop this new leg of the experience. Or they don't, or that may never be a thing, even an Excel map. So circling back around to the idea that they have some really solid tools, they have some really solid pieces of games, and if you don't want to strain development, allow those tools to be accessible and let the community play with them. You can have standard modes. Right? You have standard modes. The standard gameplay experience. Let's say the artifact mode is the standard game mode. Maybe there's a rank mode, and that's the standard rank play. But then you have custom modes. You have private lobbies. Yeah. You can, and the developers don't need to add any more to that. Just allow us. That's why Halo was as great as it was for as long as it was, because they gave us multiplayer and then custom game modes. And in your custom game modes, you could set the weapons, you could set the loadouts, you could set the maps, you could set the and people came up with these crazy game modes that wound up being new, established pinnacle experiences. Zombies was a custom game mode with community modifications that came from community creativity. Griffball became a standard game mode from community nonsense. You know, like, and that's why it's still, and look, it still exists today. It may not be its same, the pinnacle experience that it was when it released, when Halo 3 was launching and there was midnight releases, but I tell you, it's people, we still come back to it. We did this week, you know, and there's still a few thousand people keeping those games going. And they let us play.
And ultimately made it a game that can be played infinitely. No pun intended. Indeed.
So,
Halo Infinite.
Mm.
All right.
So I've done.
Here.
I've done the deep dive on Reddit, as one does whenever you're talking conversation, and it seems to me the general consensus of people is that they are essentially bitching about the fact that Wildgate's going to be $30. Some people are comparing it to other live service games like Escape from Tarkov, Fortnite, Rocket League, I don't know what else are on the list. Warzone, Arc Riders, Arena Breakout, stuff like that. Essentially, the consensus is like, what's going to happen if you invest $30 in a game 6 months down the road, the game shuts down because of lack of players? I think we see that all too well in the gaming industry. I think there's a lot of games that have so much potential, and then they're just DOA or dead on arrival for people that don't like small letters. I don't think that's going to be the case for Wildgate, and if people truly think that, then I just don't think that the game was marketed well to them, because this game does fill a niche for a lot of people. I think the niche alone will keep this game healthy. Now, will it be comparable to games like Sea of Thieves? That remains to be seen, because Sea of Thieves has been around for a long time. It's also a Game Pass game. It has a lot more development time behind it, and it's got the Microsoft daddy's money. So, you know, this game, while it may have a great level of development behind it, it doesn't have the money to run on its own. So what do you think the monetary ladder is going to be for this game? Do you feel like they're going to have battle passes? Have they discussed this? Are there going to be DLCs? Have they discussed this? Are there going to be in-game purchases for like cosmetics and stuff like that? I imagine there would be, with the exception of the ones you can unlock on the base characters. Maybe you can purchase a new character or a new ship or something like that. I'll give my opinion on the monetary side first, and then I'll open it up to you guys. Like I said at the beginning, I feel like this game, it fits a niche for me. I had a wonderful experience with it. I think the people that are griping online are that are not involved heavily in a community that will try new games. I think they have friends that will play the same game over and over, or they're simply just solo players. And so I think the solo experience when queuing up with randoms prior to having voice chat was very difficult, like in the first beta.
Right.
Adding that second beta with the text and voice chat, I think that helped a ton. I think that improved the experience, while it pales in comparison to having the best squad on Twitch, Shiv Nation, behind our wonderful little Voyager ship. I think just simply having friends and creating a community around this game will make this game last in the long run. That's what's going to keep the players. It's not the individual interest in the game. It's the synergy that you get from playing as a squad. As far as it being $30, I think that is a very generous price point. I think they could have got away with $40 easily. I think that Sea of Thieves is $40 and it fills that same niche prior to it being a free game.
Yeah.
You could purchase the game. So they did make a sizable amount of money off of that. Between like 30 and 40 million dollars on that game, which is good. But development, of course, was much higher for that game. And I was trying to find development while you guys were talking. I could not find it. So let's assume that it's somewhere in the ballpark of what we would see development for an indie game. Indie games are typically less than $100 million. You're looking in like the $20 to $40 million range for that. The amount of return on investment that they would need for this game, they're looking to try and keep that concurrent player base in around that 50 to 60,000 range would make it healthy. But let's say they had 300,000 people wishlist it and they got 300,000 purchases on launch day. I mean,
Right.
you're looking at almost What's the math on that? Someone want to do it? $30 times 300,000. Doesn't that make it?
What is it, like almost a million? It's almost a million.
It's $90 million.
Yeah. Okay. I knew that totally.
Right. Okay. So that would be huge, but that's a very generous, and we're also just throwing around numbers. We have no idea what we're talking about behind the boards. We have no clue what the development looked like for this game. The bottom line is I think $30 is completely fair in an environment where we have first party games being re-released on a console with limited availability. People are paying $80 to play the same game that has been released before. People are paying $80 to play platformers.
True.
People are paying $80 to play Mario Kart World. Okay.
That
fills a niche.
No, $90.
And that's not even getting to the caveats to it and what they've got going on as far as ownership and
exactly.
Zero, may I
please
answer that?
Please.
Okay, so I feel, and this may seem like an inverse kind of answer, but I think I'm closer to where you are, Christian. So the $30, I believe easily this game is going to get about 100 to 200 hours, and that's more than, in my opinion, worth $30.
Right, I agree.
So that, but where people could be complaining, even if it was $10, $80, XYZ, the challenge for them exists in the solo experience.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. If they don't fix the problems that this game faces in the solo experience, then they have every right to complain about the $30. It's gonna live and die there, and that's, to my eyes, why they're not gonna do ranked, because that's only gonna lessen the player base, the sweats and everything like that. Let them exist in the playground and appreciate the challenges that they experience, because if you separate them now, they might never actually solidify as a player base, a strong number. But overall, I believe that games need to be allowed to die. That's something that, when you said, when you paraphrased the complaints, I think there's a lot of people who are just in need of something that with more permanence in the world, and they're letting it express itself in a game. To expect a game that's only $30, that is only PvP in a small sandbox, to never have a exit date is unreasonable. And
no, I don't think so. Now, and I'm going to counter that, and I want to counter that because we're always on this end of we're always on this kind of opposition here. Is that on one aspect I see your point. Like, I don't think you're fully out of off base here, but I think the concept of a game doesn't have to die. I think that I feel like chess has never died. Chess will never die, right? Manhunt, a game you play with your imagination, will never die. We play a game that may never die. Development was very easy for us, and we never have to. We literally play and patch it all the time just for our amusement's sake, right? But the idea of play and the active play doesn't die. It might fade away. The interest wanes. And if the interest wanes, then there's no reason for you to be put working hours towards something to improve it. And I think that's more what I agree with on your point, is that, like, you don't want developers to be trapped in a working cycle. I understand.
Need to be allowed to move on, just like everyone else wants the job that they prayed for and finally got. Eventually, they want a new one. Like,
so here's an example.
Yeah, I think I want to double down on both of what you guys are saying. Just wholeheartedly agree that this game does not have to be live service. It does not need to compete with games of a similar caliber. I think that they can drop a complete package, have like a year development cycle, and then focus on the next big project. I don't see anything wrong with that with this kind of game. I guess the concern that I have, and what a lot of people are concerned about, is, the marathon concerns with Bungie, delaying that game. And then what was the last one? Oh, was it Concord? Yeah, Concord was a big deal to a lot of people. Now, granted, we're not looking at the amount of money invested that Sony put into Concord versus Wildgate, right? This, I think, is probably a reasonably, like, I won't say cheap development, but it's probably on the lower end of development, if I had to guess, money-wise and time-wise. This game came out under a different name, I want to say, didn't it?
I don't know. I don't know if Wildgate had an earlier development identity. Personally, I was identified with it about last year when they announced as itself, and that's what drove me to.
Yeah, it was Nebula. It was Project Nebula.
Interesting.
Yeah, they never really come out with the first name ever. They always have like a pseudonym or whatever.
Right.
But you were continuing to say though, Zero, because that was just the start of your answering the
Yeah.
question.
So now, okay. So we've seen games get the handoff. You know, like the development teams can move on, but does the game need to die when a development team moves on? Not necessarily. You just hand off that development to something else. I mean, if they're, I'm not sure if they're publishers of this game, what their contract looks like, right? Because that matters to the developers. For all you know, the developers are locked into a 10-year contract. You know, like if the developers are locked into a 10-year contract, that's what they signed. You know, you have bigger companies that we've seen that. Destiny was a 10-year contract IP, but I guess the negotiation of that contract allowed them to be very flexible what that meant, which included the development cycle and the expansions and the weird things that they went through. But we've also seen Halo, for instance, come from creating a game that was complete back when multiplayers just were finished products on disc, and then they had to release an expansion disc. Like Halo, was it Halo 2 or 3? I think it was Halo 3. You purchased a map pack disc, $20, and it came with like 8 different maps or something like that. And that was awesome. You know, like that was, but that's it. It was a finished product, development ended. They worked on the sequel, you know, and then eventually another sequel. And eventually the development got bigger and greater, and their sites got larger and wider, and publishers wanted bigger ideas and bigger executions and bigger and more money. So more studios got involved. Bungie and 343. That's where Halo is now in the hands of 343, because as maps were sub-developed by 343, but the primary product was developed by Bungie. But that then they got handed off, and they let go of their product. They let go of their IP. And now another example of like a game doesn't necessarily have to die, but a developer is allowed to walk away and stop developing on that game. It's up to ultimately they hopefully not trapped. But you know what? Listen, even the Minecraft developer sold it off, stopped, bro. He just said, "I'm gonna make billion. I'll take billions of dollars. Go ahead, do what you want." Just walked away. You know, Hideo Kojima developed Metal Gear Solid, didn't have a choice, had to abandon his baby, but the developer stopped working on development. Like ultimately, that's how games tend to die. You know, right. And so even if this smaller development team, I'm not exactly sure the size, but it's clearly not a huge development team. And if there are ex-developers, ideally we could hope that the developers are given the space to develop a product they're proud of and at the capacity that they find themselves wanting. If their passion and capacity is at a limit, of course, let them be done. Let them walk away. But there's two approaches to this. When it comes to online experiences, do you take it away from the player base or do you give it to the players? You could stop development of this game, but it would be a sad day if we were no longer able to play it. And you know that experience too, because that's exactly where Gundam Evolution felt like, where the developers not only... Rough. That was really rough. And there's no reason why that game can't exist today. You don't have to patch that, bro. You don't have to patch that game. You literally make it so that the players can hold the servers up. It might be small, it may not be matchmaking, and it may not, but bro, there's no reason why our community couldn't get together and go, let's play in a Gundam game. I'll host, you guys log in.
To your point, and I should say, and I'm not going to give any specifics, that is happening with the Gundam game.
Yes, but unfortunately, whether or not it's like honest or allowed, you know, because the developers don't necessarily are coveting it, and knowing Namco Bandai, it's because they really do protect their IPs, and there's like legality behind certain IPs. The Gundam IP is a very big property, so you can't just let that go. You probably legally aren't allowed to keep it up in the first place. For all we know, the reason why they shut down is maybe had to do with some sort of copyright flag that we never heard the light of day of. You know, like that could happen too.
Yeah.
So, but that's an example of like, but Team Fortress 2, like this game could fall in the category of Team Fortress 2, where
Yeah.
it could stop development, but that's cool. Like this product is perfect. I don't necessarily need any more development here. Let me get
Let me go ahead
30
and tell
hours
you
of
guys-
this.
I'll tell you real quick because I just looked this up and I wanted to make sure. So here's what we have from Moonshot Games. They've confirmed that they plan to release ongoing free content updates for the game after its launch. They're still developing their approach to post-launch content, but they hope to share more details soon. They don't have definitive plans to announce at this time, but they're considering a seasonal structure that will, with new releases approximately every 3 to 4 months. They are excited about the possibilities for expanding the game's universe, potentially adding content like new loot, threats, points of interest, enemies, and even combat on planets or moons. The developers are also open to evolving their post-launch support based on community feedback. So essentially a lot of what we've talked about, they're taking all of that in consideration already. There's free content that's planned for at least the first year. I would hope that they will uphold that. Maybe not like a pseudo promise, but I would hope that they uphold some sort of structure of stability after the game's launch. I'd like to see a couple of updates to it, and I'd like to see a finished product within the year. I think that would be awesome. Am I going to say that I want this game to last longer than a year? Well, it just depends on what they've built into it. If this starts getting to be a more sweaty, more competitive game, if we get some sort of ranked ladder, if we get some additional types of gameplay or new game modes, then yeah, maybe, sure. But let's say it stays with the same exact model that we've seen now, and they're just going to update on existing parameters in the game, in which case I would just be happy for it to just build upon what it has already done well and make that a polished product, and then move on to the next big idea that they have.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I also want to say before that, Chloe brings up a good point. We could probably take a few minutes here and take a look at some clips of the game. Let's throw that in. I know, Zero, you were probably going to lace it with some clips overlaying this, not necessarily having your face in the background and Wildgate in the background, but maybe some gameplay intertwined. Did we want to look at some of our favorite clips over the beta after we talk about this point?
I'm not opposed to it. Aiden, would you be down?
Sure, absolutely. I wanted to say, because it would be weird to bring it up to continue, to your point of longevity, I believe that this game deserves credit for standing out in a sea of phenomenal games in the last 3 years. Probably some of the best gaming that I've ever seen.
Right.
I think that it will fit nicely into it. I do not know what people expect, but I think it'll be one of those games that come around every month or so, where everybody just gets together and plays. But I don't know if it's going to be an everyday thing. And if that's the case, which most games do fall in that, even excellent games, I think they should build around that as devs. Not making too big of promises, because they don't know what this community is going to do and appreciate their stuff. I think that's why they didn't actually put it in stone what they're going to do. They're going to see what happens and then move accordingly. They pray they're using that acumen, because the gaming community is very fickle. We've gotten better over the last couple of years, but we are extremely fickle. If the game's too good, that actually can end up going against it. Oh, there's no divisiveness. You just said yesterday Hideo Kojima had to make the game worse, because if it was too good, it wouldn't succeed.
That is a really interesting point. Yeah. No, but that's a creator. That's a particular creator conflict. That's like, like Hideo Kojima is an anomaly, outright. And he's also he's the outlier that, like, well, if my publisher doesn't agree with how I want to do things, then I'm just going to go make my own company. He is he is the shiny Pokemon of game development, but Wildgate, from what I understand, again, ex-developers of Blizzard. So these are like refugee style development. We can assume that Wildgate is more of a product that they're already proud of. And it's already going in a direction that may have more freedom to develop. And similar to like No Man's Sky, where when that game released, did not go over well, but that developer could have walked away. And instead, for the next 10 years, we got so many free updates that now our jaw is agape of curiosity. It's like, how is this dude? How are they still out here doing that? Like, first, I don't know how they're making money. I genuinely have no idea.
This subsect of the conversation isn't about the legendary status or the Pokemon, shiny Pokemon status of the devs. It's the fickleness of people. This is beyond games. This has been the thing since time immemorial. We complain about what we've asked for years, and then we don't appreciate it. It's just the human nature, and I'd like to think they understand that, and they've experienced it. Being at Blizzard and World of Warcraft, they have to understand, even when people ask for something, you give it to them, they might actually get mad at you for it. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, listen, you can never, you know, everything is speculation, but we can only hope that we can steer a conversation like this in a direction of appreciation and in a direction of positive feedback and in a direction of trying to give simple solutions for developers so that there's no resent towards their community, because I've seen that too. I've seen developers have resentment towards their communities. And that's got to be like the worst feeling, right? Like that's, as a creator,
that's kind of why I'm saying what I'm saying, because as we've actually, you and I, we've worked on developing games and such. I'm trying to both give flowers to the devs in this, if they're listening, and to curb expectations towards the would-be players, to appreciate what you're experiencing. Don't need it to last forever. Nothing does, and that can be beautiful. Appreciate what you have now, give it your best, grow from it, and who knows, maybe you'll make a game and have like this. It goes on and on. But when people don't curb their expectations, or expectations aren't met that were unreasonable to start with, then it has no chance out the gate. What are you going to appreciate in life if you're moving like that?
Well, that's true, but that's exactly why a game like No Man's Sky had such a difficult start. And again, like why these playtests are very important. You know, like why developers are taking this route of going early access or playtests, or, you know, because they don't want to just speak on an idea. They want to show quality assurance departments now are us. We are in some ways working for the ability to play this experience. So it's kind of, one may argue that we deserve a little bit more than that, but still, this is kind of a mutual gain here. We get to touch a thing, we get to see it for what it is and not for what it's not. Mm-hmm. And that is a great way to start these conversations. I'm not out here still speculating, oh man, I wonder what Wildgate is. I know what it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's not going to be, and I don't need to know about an unknown, because I'd rather just be surprised. And that's I think what we as a community have the opportunity to contribute to, instead of hyper speculating about where our imagination goes to, because we're not on a development team. We should focus on what small puzzle pieces we can connect to, much more reasonably and grounded expectations of like, right, well, let's see what with the tools they have, how much more difficult it is for them to make a 1v1 mode. Really, like, what does it take? And like, I would love to know from the developers specifically, what does it take? How much development time would it take for them to establish a 1v1 mode? You know, like that just like that. They could be like, oh, actually, you know what? We never thought about that. It could take 15 minutes. We'll send it out tomorrow. You know, like, or it could like, actually, due to the way we established the foundation of this game, it may take 6 months of development. Okay, wow, didn't expect that. Have no idea why. You know, like that's a large majority of the community. Like, gamers aren't developers. They're not thinking like devs. They're thinking like people who can consume food. Is it hot or is it cold? Can I eat this? Is it good?
Is it soup?
Is it soup yet? Thanks everybody for making it this far into the video. I cut the conversation off right there at the end because during the live stream we tapered off into trailer reactions, VOD reviews, and I thought most of the meat and potatoes of our conversation was pretty much good soup. And the remainder of this footage is going to be the rest of the last game we played that kept the servers open about 40 minutes after the cutoff time. And I think it's a great example of the depth and strategy and camaraderie that this game
really offers. And well, I'll let it play for itself. I hope you enjoy, and leave your comments down below and tell us what you liked, what you'd like to see. And yeah, we'll see you again. 2 on the front.
Got it.
Ooh, they're trying.
Okay.
Nice shot.
Enemy ship detected.
There's the fucking Mungus, dude. Okay, we get them to fight. Fuck this.
Hit.
Bruh, they have the ancient cannons, don't they?
No. No, they do not.
Okay, in and out.
Wearing shields. Reactor cooling.
Good job. Keep an eye
I
on
kind of wanted to bait out the Mungus.
How fast can this thing go?
We set mines behind us too. We're chilling. How's that going, Mob?
Three things left before I can cap.
Hey, Aiden, you wanna go help him? I'll come.
I'll die if I go out in the storm.
I'm gonna bring you right next to a gate, sir.
Focus all down.
I'll count it down for you. You got about 30 seconds. About a minute.
Here we go. Faster, faster, faster.
Chris can hang on turrets as we keep them on the gate. Because I think we go for a loot steal. Okay. We should be leaving the storm here in a moment. We are right above the gate for you to enter. We are right above.
Sniper cannon installed on the rear. Quad cannon installed on the right.
Engaging thrusters.
Okay, we are by the entrance point. Hi, Slody.
Okay, in and out. Before they know what hit them.
And they are fighting. Mission success.
Target down.
And now we wait. Whoo! Thanks so much for everybody tuning in.
Engaging thrusters.
We're keeping these servers open.
I'm watching this ship.
We're on the last round.
Beautiful. Love to hear that.
Dropped it. Now I'm cruising.
Reloading.
Chris is coming in to help.
Here we go. Faster, faster, faster.
Raising shields.
We're chilling.
Okay, in and out.
And they're running away from the gate.
Big or small. They all go down. Checked out.
I'm down. On the right, Mop. Thank you, Rez.
Third, sorry.
No, you did it.
Mungus is turning around.
Turrets out.
They're back to back. They might have made a unanimous pact.
Arcus all down.
Count it down for me.
Last
But
round.
we're about to finish now.
Loot up. Time to get paid.
Reloading.
We got about 2 minutes.
Faster.
Recharge station's back here if you need it before we go.
Do you see this?
I'm putting artifact on the ship. You guys can loot.
Turret.
Are we? Do we have it?
In and out.
Yep.
Yeah, I have it in hand.
They know what hit them.
Are you leaving? Can you leave through the same gate?
No.
Right.
You have to go the front door.
What is it? Oh my god, it has
Take
blue
that.
legendary cannon.
Yep.
Take that entropy.
You have to go front door, right?
You want it on the front?
En route
Yeah.
to Wildgate.
I'm coming, Chris.
Entropy cannon installed on the front. Lowering shields.
Ooh, they got a Star Lancer. Ancient one at that.
I need to know where you're coming from.
It's gonna be front gate, Zero. All the way in the storm.
Wait, we need.
I'm almost there. T
Okay, I
minus
see what you're saying.
I'm on Kuman.
10, 9,
Reactor cooling.
8, 7, 6, 5,
Alright, gang, gang.
4,
Gang, gang's coming.
3,
Wildgate.
2, 1. I'm in front. I'm in front.
You're in the outside gate.
Oh no. You were in the way. So you did come out the same spot,
Storm
dude.
barrier active.
Yo, Ghosty, thanks so much for the follow, my guy. You came out the exact same spot. I was standing right
It's
there.
random. It's
It's not. It's
It's a
shape
whatever it is. Yeah.
specific. I think I'm the last
Okay.
streamer on Twitch. We about to make a play.
Game is here. Game is here.
Yep, they're on our 6. And Mungus is there.
Put the artifact in the front.
Got the artifact.
Hit the NOS, please.
Can we take the entropy?
Yep.
Yes,
on
Hit the
front.
NOS. Hit the
Enemy
NOS.
ship detected.
I'm here. I'm here.
I'm firing at Mungus.
And control of acceleration.
Engaging.
I'm putting traps on that fucking artifact.
Turret ready. All right. Thrusters hot. Engaging thrusters.
We're going out
Gate
with
is
the
open.
fucking
Gate
bang,
is
boys.
open.
Okay.
Someone with me on front?
1 kilometer from Wildgate.
We're thrusting for the victory. Let's go, baby. Last streamer on Twitch. About to catch this win.
Got the pilot.
Coolant ready.
Got the pilot again. They have a sword on
I
front.
got
They
the
have a
fires.
sword
I
on
got the
front.
fires.
Shields up.
Oh, I hit him away.
Any more NOS?
Reactor
No.
coolant.
Heard.
Gang on left. I'm firing on them.
Keep the fires out. On board, on board. Shock, shock, shock. Huge shock.
We're being sorted.
Keep it going.
Engine compromised.
Engines are down. Engines are down. Repair engines.
Repairing. I'm repairing.
Here with them.
On coolant. Nice.
Oxygen destabilized.
Come on.
Oxygen
Gang, gang.
destabilized.
Got the captain again.
15
They got
seconds for
sorters.
coolant.
Keep going.
I'm pulling gang away.
On one more boost. We should be there. Let's go, baby. Come on. Come
Back
on.
guns. I'm
Come
coolant.
on.
I'm on coolant.
Enemy ship detected. Reactor coolant
Almost there.
We got a sword on us in 2 seconds. Boost if you
Hold your
can.
breath.
detected.
Engines down.
Oh, I killed their pilot.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Honey, do you hear that drumming? Funny, I've been feeling that all day and all night. I won't lie.